Good morning again. Show and tell time again. I am going to bring this around just to make sure that everyone gets a decent look at it. This is not a trick question, but I want to make sure everyone sees what I got here, right? Everyone sees. This is not plastic, by the way. This is plastic. So on the count of three, I'd like you to tell me what I have here, okay? On the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Okay, right, wrong. I don't know who said what. So how many said, give me one that you said. Soil. How many said something different? Dirt. Compost. Mulch. Okay, thank you. Have a good day. Okay, so let's talk about that. We'll get to that in a second. I guess I'd start with this dirt. In general, dirt is what I've been thinking about all this week. So you might say that for the past 7 days, I've had a dirty mind. Because as I prepared to gather with you all today, in a week where Easter and Earth Day and our UUPF Flower Communion Sunday all overlap, that was the through line, dirt. Okay, technically, that's not true, actually. The through line is actually soil. But the term soiled mind, that doesn't sound as good as dirty mind, so I've taken artistic license, okay? So that was actually my first area of learning this week. While the terms dirt and soil are often used interchangeably, friends, technically speaking, soil is a much more complex and fertile substance than dirt. Soil includes mineral particles, organic matter, living organisms. Dirt is essentially the degraded or less useful form of soil. If you're young enough to understand this reference, you might say that dirt is soil if you order it on Temu, right? Or for maybe if you're a little older, dirt is dollar store soil. Now, based on my abysmal gardening track record, I think I've been using dirt instead of soil all this time because everything I plant quickly degrades into organic material. Now, soil is usually characterized by 4 things. It's clay content, it's sand content, it's water content, and it's organic content, which of course means that not all soil is created equally, which is why different kinds of soil in different environments support different kinds of life depending on its specific qualities, right? Some regions of this world are uninhabitable to some forms of life while hospitable toward others. We can't grow the same things here that they may be able to grow in the Ukraine. Or we can't grow the same things here that maybe they could grow in the northwestern part of our country. Make sense? Right? And in some profound ways, we are similarly a product of our environments, the places in which we have existed, in our homes and our families of origin, our friendships, our churches, our workplaces, and our nation. Our geography often makes a difference in our formative narratives, in who we become, either because of the places in which we found ourselves or in spite of them, right? Some of us here have had to transcend our previous soil in order to become who we've become today. Today is Easter Sunday, and interestingly, if you grew up as I did in the Christian tradition, you may remember that Jesus tells his disciples what is known as the parable or the story of the 4 soils. Now, if you don't know what that is, I'm going to give you a 90-second version. Jesus describes the different people who would listen to his message of compassion and love and interdependence. There were 4 different kinds of people who received the seed that he was planting. First, there was the hard path people, the hard-hearted people who lacked empathy and who rejected those teachings. Then were the rocky ground people. They were shallow, superficial people who didn't really want to go to the deeper places required to love your neighbor as yourself. And there were thorny ground people, those too distracted by materialism and busyness to really consider the other people around them. And then finally, there were good soil people, those who were soft-hearted enough to hear the message and determined enough to put it into practice. Soft-hearted, but determined. And as we sit here today, trying to fathom how so many people can embrace a movement of cruelty, how they can be without urgency while constitutional crises are breaking out, how they can be seemingly oblivious to the pain of other people, we begin to understand the way people's minds can impact their capacity for compassion. The story in their heads begins to adjust the pH balance of their emotional soil. And most often, when our family members, when our friends and our neighbors and coworkers and classmates rationalize cruelty, when they tolerate bullying, when they abide inhumane treatment of other human beings, it's because they feel somehow detached from those people for whatever reason. And that myth of being detached from other people allows them to escort in words and behavior and politicians and legislation that they'd never allow otherwise. So think about the people you know who you question the reasons why they embrace the things that they embrace, why they allow the things they allow. Those people that you're frustrated with. Maybe they're sitting next to you right now. Then begin to think about the environment in which they existed and still exist. Their family members and friends and their media decisions and their churches are providing a certain environment that is either hospitable to life or inhospitable to it. Now, I'm not going to put anyone on the spot in this room, but Dave, hi. So we're just going to look at Dave for a second. Okay, now look away because that's awkward. But it could easily be, somebody else. It could be Melanie. It could be Valerie. You take any one of us in this room and any one of these flowers, and I want you to think about how similar they actually are. Our connectedness is undeniable. Each of these and each of us are fragile and finite. We're vulnerable to the environment, to injury, and to lack of nurturing. Each of us is made of organic material generated by the earth. Each is sustained by organic material from the earth and will decompose into organic material that becomes the earth. No exceptions other than my plastic friends up here. The story of our journey in my tradition was ashes to ashes. I'm going to say dirt to dirt. And it's times like these when we think about the connections between these flowers and these human beings, who we are, that the etymology of words becomes fascinating. I'm a person of words. And you may know this, you may not, but the word human comes from the Latin word humus. The same words as we get soil and earth from. So humans, earth, and soil all coming from the same root word. Now, this semantic connection between our life and the life of the planet helps us remember how interdependent we all are. It helps us remember the ground we stand on, the people we walk beside, and the future of this place are all connected. And one of the greatest barriers to empathy is the myth of our independence, the belief that we are fully autonomous, or that we exist disconnected from anything or anyone else, or the myth that we can somehow choose those whose fates ours are intertwined with, and we can't. We can have our tribes of affinity. We can have the people we prefer to hang out with. But our various spiritual traditions and our different moral codes almost unanimously affirm that we are bound to one another. That another's success is our success. That we are our brother's keeper. That we are better when we love our neighbor as ourselves, whoever that neighbor is. We are intended to be collaborators and not combatants. And the problem is that there are so many people who have forgotten that because they don't think that we are as similar as we are. But despite what we might be saying to ourselves lately about the state of this nation and the state of the world, so many people still understand this, right? The millions of people protesting throughout the country yesterday, and those who've been doing so for months, aren't doing it for themselves or their family or their friends or their neighbors alone. They're doing it for people across the country. They're doing it for people across the world. People whose names they'll never know. They are standing in solidarity with complex, diverse life in and around and on the planet. And maybe that's something that we need to make sure we don't forget today. That there are people inhabiting the world right now who feel what we feel. But as we witness a man like Kilmar Abrego Garcia and many others right now who, without due process and in disregard of their human and civil rights, are being taken from college campuses and churches and work sites and deported or jailed, we can see in people's varying responses to this an understanding of the rejection of or the understanding of our interdependence, our interconnectedness. Because the otherizing that we're seeing and the dehumanization that we're seeing against people based on their nation of origin or their gender identity or the color of their skin or their sexual orientation, that dehumanization is built upon the lie of separation. One that allows people to tolerate or even celebrate the suffering of some, believing that they are less worthy of health or protection or opportunity or of a home than they are. They even believe that the suffering of those people somehow helps them. But we are all in this dirt together. The mess we're in is global. It's intercontinental. It's interfaith. It's nonpartisan. We can buffer ourselves a bit by our geography or by our privilege or by selective proximity to people or by avoiding the news, but none of this will supersede the truth. There is only one group of people on the planet, and they're humans. Now, Thich Nhat Hanh, Buddhist monk, says this: true self is non-self. The awareness that the self is made only of non-self elements. Think about this. There is no separation, he says, between self and other. And everything is interconnected. Once you are aware that you are no longer caught in the idea that you are a separate entity. And one of the reasons I love coming here is because I'm reminded that I don't exist alone. I don't exist for myself. I exist to be in community with other human beings. So, the words human are related to soil and earth. Cool stuff, right? Now, don't even get me started on the word manure. Or its more colloquial surname. It's a word that I would have used had we not had young people in this service. Now, we know where manure comes from, and we know that in its informal title, it's synonymous with terrible circumstances. We are all going through some manure right now. But we also know that manure can make things grow. This is true of smelly organic material and of sickening circumstances and stinky seasons. See, it's easy for us to be grateful for the fragrant flowers in this life, but not the putrid decomposition they spring from. Do you ever just say, I'm going to give thanks for terrible things today? Maybe today is the day. Because right now, as objectively catastrophic as these days are, they're still shaping us. They're still helping us clarify what matters to us. They're inviting us to more deeply spend ourselves in the cause of all that we value. Even these harsh conditions are actually helpful. And in times when we're confused and when we feel powerless, it's good to remember that our job is always clear and it's always the same. To be stewards of beautiful things, to help nurture life. We're here to be the good soil that we can. And I think gratitude is essential in remembering this. Small practices of gratitude today can help us remember how connected we are to everyone and everything. Now, you may be familiar with emotional eating, something I do not condone but religiously practice. Again, Thich Nhat Hanh says this about not emotional eating, but intentional eating. He says, if you truly get in touch with a piece of carrot, you get in touch with the soil and the rain and the sunshine. You get in touch with Mother Earth, and eating in such a way, you feel in touch with true life, your roots, and that is meditation. If we chew every morsel of our food in a way like that, we become grateful, and when you are grateful, you are happy. I think more than just thinking about the soil and the rain and the sunshine, as we eat food, we can think about the hands that tended to it, harvested it, prepared the food that fills and sustains us, the farmers and the vegetable pickers and the truck drivers and the restaurant staff. And when we think about that, suddenly we're not eating alone, even when we're by ourselves. We're in the company of thousands. Thinking about the fact that we're all organic material and that we're all temporary, we ask questions about life like, did we spring from the earth itself and will one day return to it via a scientific process alone? Are we just born of time and evolution? Or are we the intentional work of some divine, superhuman creator made to transcend the here to the hereafter? I'm not answering these questions today, by the way, that's above my pay grade. But are we the result of the mathematics of science or the poetry of spirituality or something in between? Are we just organic material that has simply changed forms over time, or are we spiritual beings having a physical experience? Are we bodies alone, or are we souls housed in physical containers? And is our morality something that is the product of evolution and self-preservation, or is there some objective goodness that we aspire to because of something beyond us? Are we destined when we leave here to heaven, hell, or the ground? Now, consensus will probably be impossible today, but let's think about the in-between. The time after our arrival and before our departure. Can we agree on the point of this beautiful, messy middle that we're sharing together? That dash between the two dates of our arriving and exiting. What are we meant to do while we're here? And since we're temporary and yet surrounded by so much beauty, I think we're meant to be good tenants, good neighbors, good caregivers, good caretakers. Because 70 to 100 years from now, this building, our homes, this nation, this planet will be occupied by people who are not us. They may not even know our names or anything about who we were, at least directly, but they will have received an inheritance from us. How we care for what is in our hands today. So think about it. What's your responsibility toward people here in this country? What is your responsibility to people outside of our borders? How do we balance freedom and safety with compassion and mercy? We are an ever more siloed people, right? We're deeply sequestered in the protective bubbles of those we consider our tribe, right? So often those who look, sound, spend, worship, vote, and love like we do. That often becomes our understanding of the world, and we know many people in this world right now, in this nation especially, are looking for those who think, look, talk, believe, worship, and love the way they do. And anyone else is largely expendable. And when we do that, we shrink all humanity down to a tiny, close collection of the people we think our life impacts and is touched by. But that collection is much larger than we ever realize. Yes, those nearest to us will hopefully feel the ripples of our lives most profoundly. Our parents, our children, our siblings, our close friends, our partners and spouses. They're going to feel the ripples of our life the most. But yet the truest truth we have access to today is that those ripples travel further than we ever realize. They just keep going out and out and out. Here's what I think we believe as a community. That everything is connected. That separation is a myth. And that oneness is the greatest truth that there is. We are one with one another. We are one with this earth. We have 8 billion roommates right now. That's difficult. But if we don't respect that, we're denying the best part of our humanity. This planet is our single shared space where we seek meaning and we breathe and run and curse and pray and love and kill and dance and die, and we do none of it truly independently, never completely disconnected from it all. Every person is the neighbor we are called to love as ourselves. And this means that a child across town or half a world away is as precious as the one sleeping in our grandparents' house in the nursery. And if we don't see the value of a person in our home as just as valuable as a person who lives halfway across the world, if we can't treasure both of those human beings equally, why are we here? One more connection I've been sitting with this week between Easter and Earth Day and the days in which we find ourselves is the idea of the plot twist, of the surprise, of life arising when it is least expected. Because the Easter story is the story of weeping and mourning following a Friday of finality, and then of hope being extinguished with a funeral, but then the impossible happening and rebirth arriving. That is the story of the tradition. And as we think about our planet in peril, of our resources under siege, and of so many species disappearing, we also have evidence of animals once believed to be extinct showing up again, reminding us, as the original Jurassic Park taught us, life finds a way, friends. And now many of us are feeling like our nation is a lost cause, as if we know how the story is going to end. That's not true. We are standing at this spot in the story, but that story will have chapters to come. And though it might unfold the way we imagine and the way we fear it will, we could just as easily be wrong and could be surprised by life rising up. So I don't know where all these connections of us to the earth and to one another and the fleeting and finite nature of all of us, where they take you today. Maybe you'll take time today to recognize your mortality and think about what you want to do with the rest of your time here. Maybe these words will remind you of the ways our destinies and the destinies of others are tied together. The way it might strengthen your resolve to stand up for the vulnerable and the oppressed and the disregarded people, knowing that they are fragile and finite and beautiful. They might have you recognizing the humanity of those you disagree with as you try and get through the environments of upbringing and politics and religion that change people from good soil into people whose hearts are hardened toward the world. Or maybe you've been thinking about this manure that you and this nation are currently going through to try and understand what might be growing within you right now, how you might be changing for the better. Or maybe you're encouraged to be reminded that just as you are thinking of and fighting for strangers, they are doing the same for you. There are people you don't know who care about you enough to stand in the street. Today, remember how humanity connects you to so many others, the way you are a part of a singular story of life and death and rebirth. And maybe today give thanks for even the stinking messes, because something beautiful is growing there.